Facebook go live. Alrighty. Nothing ever works the way you want it to.
We're only about a few seconds out, correct?
Yeah, we're a little over. About a minute off.
Okay.
There we go. Now it's streaming.
Resync?
We're good now. We're streaming now.
Okay.
Starting. Wasn't working there for a second, so I think we're good now. I think we got that. So we'll go ahead and.
Right. So we're working out some technical issues. Broadcast feed seems to be, I don't know. Is this a Cylon issue?
I think it might be the technical issue. We'll find out here in a second.
Well, as long as it's not being caused by outside interference, then, sometimes it's all about who do you blame.
Was in World War II, they used to blame the little guy they used to call. It was in Bugs Bunny cartoons, so World War II had a problem.
Oh, you're talking about, oh, man.
The heck's that little guy's name?
Oh, God. Yeah, oh, not Killjoy. What was his name? Yeah, there's always some kind of a gremlin that's in the works. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
All right, I actually have the social this time too. Yeah, it's the gremlin.
I remember his name from like when it's not needed.
Alrighty then, we'll go ahead and get started.
All right. All right. So you're still showing.
Yep. Hang on.
Our.
Yeah. Give me a second.
Okay.
All right. Going live. And we're on. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. My name is Chris Moore. I say this every time we go on live, but you just don't know who might come on. So I'm Chris Moore, also known as the Tipsy Toaster. I'm one of the producers here at Interfleet Broadcasting, and with me is.
Hey, everybody. This is Pete, New York Pete. I'm co-producing and co-anchoring with Chris, and we have a great show. We have a little extra surprise for you. Hopefully a permanent part of our actual broadcast. So we usually start, Chris, with the toast. So
yes.
let's
well,
do that. Just
I haven't done my due diligence yet.
Yes, of course. All right, little prep there. Oh, fantastic! All the way to the top.
We survived another week. Hopefully things get slow down for everybody, because they're really fast for me. I can tell you that much. So
that's for sure.
To the fleet.
To the fleet.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, we got the toast out of the week out of the way, and for this week, I think we're going to introduce a little bit of news just to keep us in context with what's going on, right? So, uh, we happen to have we have a reporter with us, right? That previously put together some of the highlights of what's going on, and we'd like to welcome to our staff John Van Costine, and welcome, John. So he's reporting on some of the news, latest and hottest sci-fi news. Chris?
Alrighty. We'll cut to John.
Disney Plus. We've seen the reporting on the latest.
You there, John? There you go.
This is John 1 reporting on the latest sci-fi news for Interfleet Broadcasting. October 30th, Season 2 of The Mandalorian drops on Disney Plus. We've seen the previews. They look action-packed. I've noticed WWE star Sasha Banks is making an appearance. I wonder who she'll be playing, either Vela or maybe Sabine Wren from Star Wars Rebels. There are also other rumored actresses that will be in the series too. Katie Sakalov and Rosario Dawson, who could possibly be playing Ahsoka Tano. October 6th, Swamp Thing aired on the CW. This series originally aired on the DC Universe, but was canceled. Hopefully it'll find a home on the CW. Also on the CW, the last few episodes of Supernatural aired. This would be the last season of Supernatural. It was going to end up last year, but due to COVID, it had to stop shooting. All good things must come to an end. But this Friday, Hulu will be streaming Marvel's Hellstrom, so hopefully that will be a good replacement. We shall see. Tune in next week for the latest scoop. Same orbit, subspace channel, transmission out.
All right, thank you, John. I screwed up there. I forgot to put his lower third in. We'll get there.
Well,
We'll get there.
we'll get there.
As a matter of fact,
Soon
the great
enough.
thing is, though, John is on the social site, and I can actually see, so we can actually answer questions tonight if anybody goes on to the YouTube site or the Facebook site for Interfleet Broadcasting and types in a comment. We can actually pull those up and across. John reminded us that it was Gremlins. That's what we were looking for earlier. Gremlins.
Yes, that's right. Okay, cool. So all right. So we mentioned some of the top stuff that's going on: Mandalorian, Swamp
Yeah,
Thing, and
Katie
Supernatural.
Sackhoff is going to be in one of those too. I really like Katie a lot. And I know she's Battlestar Galactica 2004, but
Right, right.
I like her. I like her. I like the way she acts. She's got a couple of there's a Netflix show. I can't remember the name of the Netflix show off the top of my head, but she's really good in that too.
I actually saw it. I watched the whole series.
Yeah, it's coming out again too. I think I don't know when, but I know that
Yeah.
she's on her Twitter account. I think she's posting some behind the scenes stuff every so once in a while.
Well, that's what John's on board for. So hopefully,
There we go.
maybe John give us an update on our next episode. So
Well, we appreciate it, John. I guess we'll move on to let's see. Let's talk
main
with
theme.
the big thing. So I guess we're ready to move on to the book versus video or book versus episode. Once again, I still haven't had a chance to put the audio in, so we can just pretend that we have all the good audio here, so where I can make it up again. So we got book versus episode, and of course I'm going to have a viper flying through, blowing that up, and we'll go from there.
And big explosions.
Yeah, with all that cool sound effects. Still have to work on that. Maybe I can work on that this next weekend. So, book versus episode. We're going to go ahead and get started. I think the first thing we could probably show up is the Adama journals, kind of the way that works off the bat. So, we'll go ahead and talk right off the top. Book versus episode. Real quick, hang on. Let me do this before we get into this too far. Just a reminder for everybody, this is a continuing theme or broadcast or episode. And here we're comparing the book, Battlestar Galactica, to the movie or the episode of Battlestar Galactica. And we're getting to see what kind of the differences are. So we're kind of really deep diving into the differences. We even deep diving into the differences of the books. So if you haven't seen a couple of the earlier episodes, they're covering the very beginning of the books. We talk about the different types of books, the different ones. And we're also talking about Chapter 1 and, of course, the Adama journals in front of Chapter 1. We're now finally moving into Chapter 2. So we'll go ahead and get it started with chapter 2 with the Adama Journal.
All right. Well, this is one of the things I think that we haven't really mentioned, Chris, is that this is our way of giving back to fandom since we're real big fans and we like to read the books as well
Yes.
and pick up as much information. So, yeah. All right, Adama journals. I'll tell you, Chris, when watching the show, right, and we watched the movie first, and then we went into the series itself. Personally, I was always curious in terms of Adama, Commander Adama. What was the context of this man who's very wise in everything he does, right? He has a military background as well as this other leadership role that he plays. So it's not only one hat that he wears, but his family's with him, and like how does the events, what's taking place, it has to have a profound effect on anyone involved. And with the Adama journals, we actually get to look inside and into the thought processes of Commander Adama himself. And I really enjoyed reading it back then when it first came out, and even now, because he mentions and he discusses a little bit of the loss of his son Zach, and then he talks a little bit about the context of the deaths, right, that overcome the 12 colonies, and the loss, of course, of his wife as well, right? Let's not forget that. So that's a part of this one intro paragraph that's written out from the Adama journal that precedes the actual chapter itself. Like all the chapters have this little commentary, which we do see in the show itself. We see Adama actually recording his commentary, and it comes up on the
Yeah.
screen itself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
he has that little
he
green
talks about
screen that
law.
pops up, and usually there's just certain episodes that has it in there, which is kind of, it's not all of them, but it's kind of neat that it's kind of the the what is it, like the text to type thing going on that was in the 70s was almost unheard of. Nowadays it's, you pick up your cell phone and it does it. So text to type, talk to text. So it's pretty amazing that they, it's one of those things like in Star Trek they thought about different things. But yeah, the Adama journals were very uh, get in depth look at Adama, and in this one's no different. The beginning of the chapter, um, he's got this. It's kind of interesting, and I don't know how I would feel. So here he is. He's dictating the machine, and this is kind of a journal type thing, and he's saying, you know, um, he's mourning the death of his son,
Right.
but he's also mourning the death of all of these people, all of the fighter pilots, and all of the things that are happening right now. So it's a mass death, and so the millions have killed, but those people are strangers.
Right.
To me, a family member dying would be much more personal. But in his journal entry, he's saying things as he feels. Say, I don't know if he feels guilty because he feels the same loss for his son as he does for the millions, of people that were killed. I don't think I can do that. I mean, I would seriously have a hard time feeling bad for the death of strangers than it would be, for my son or somebody like that.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's well written, and it gives us a quick glimpse into like his background, and where he's coming from, which I thought was important. If we're gonna gloss over in the show itself, we go over a lot of material very very quickly. But with this, right, it gives us that interesting backstory, and it gives us the seriousness of what it is that these people are experiencing. And Adama doesn't have any time to go into any type of shock or really mourn, at least in the normal sense of it. But here, it's just enough to give us this insight into the fact that he is this stalwart, um, commander, right, the military guy and leader that has emotion, feels like everybody else. He has the pain, and it gives it a context, which I thought was really important for me to understand, a little bit more about, who and what Adama is going through, which we don't get to see, of course, really in the movie itself. But I liked it. I enjoyed it. It's short and sweet, and it made me think, especially when I first read it.
Oh, I agree. I definitely love these things, and it gives you so it bleeds right over into our right into chapter 2, in regards to just the feelings and what's going on. And so chapter 2, we'll go ahead and pop over to chapter 2 now, since that's pretty much the Adama Journal piece. I mean, was there anything else that you wanted to cover inside the Adama Journal? It wasn't
No,
really a
no, this
long one
one,
this time. The very first one
no.
was kind of long, but this one was kind of a short one.
Yeah, it was like a short interlude into, Adama's feelings, right?
Yep.
How he, the pathos he's feeling, this weight of the death and the mass death. And then we, the bridge is, right, Adama, thinking of Adama's losses, how he sees it, mentioning it, and we kind of just jump right into, it brings us right into the action, like what's going on.
Right.
And with that, we start developing the idea of quickly getting into the Cylons themselves.
Yep. Chapter 2, the Cylons, the enemy that you didn't know, or maybe you don't know. Once again,
Well,
the book is so much different than what we saw on screen. So, but you're right. It transfers right over from. It kind of talks about Adama being on the bridge, and then it rolls over to the Imperious leader being in the center of his domain. So they kind of, and if you kind of, I think it also does a little thing is, I did notice kind of a convenient thing that the um, the bridge of the Battlestar is kind of circular, right? You got he sits up on a pedestal,
right.
Adama, and them are up on a pedestal type deal. And then you look at the Imperious leader and those, and it has almost the same thing. So it's got a pedestal. We're on top of the Imperious leader, except the Imperious leader is by himself up on the pedestal. But so there, kind of bleeds over from Adama on the bridge to comparing it to the Cylon commander and what his thoughts are. And this is really great because I guess this is where they start to describe the base star.
Yeah, it says that those few people, which is kind of cool. It keeps it all in context, because who out of all the colonists, who would be able to ever see a base star, right? And the only
Right.
ones would be, fighter pilots, Viper pilots, and I don't know who else might, maybe those on the command bridge of a Battlestar that got close enough would actually be able to see what a base star looks like. So obviously this is not something common knowledge. Like, not everybody
Right.
knows what a base star looks like, but they all say it looks like a top, like a
Yep.
spinning top.
This is
Yep, there
kind
we
of
go.
the idea of uh, I like it's they describe it as being circular and it spins like a top, which is kind of interesting because we really don't see the ones in the show spinning like a top. But uh, the in this graphic here, the top left was the I guess the
Ralph McQuarrie.
yeah it was the drawing, it was the concept drawings for the show. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the show has got the ones bound below. But the one on the right, you know where that one came from? It's in one of the very first episodes. And when he's scanning he scans for the different, what was it, the
Ships.
tanker? So
Yeah. He's trying to, yeah,
when he's going through there,
identify.
that's
Yeah.
one of the things that pop up on it.
Oh, that's cool.
That because
That's cool.
it doesn't show like the other ones. It shows like that inside the thing. So, but yeah, so I think it looks a lot like I mean, maybe they're trying to push it back to the old UFO.
Yeah, kind
Yeah,
of.
I mean,
But it looks
circular
real cool.
UFOs, they spin.
It looks like a top.
Yep.
And for all we know, I mean, you can easily explain this away as the Cylons evolve like everybody else, and how do we know that that's not an image from maybe the original base stars, and then the ones that we get to see later on are some kind of an evolution or something.
I haven't thought of it that way. Yeah, Sean sounds. I'm gonna mess your name up, Sean. The war book says, and that's what it was. That's what the war book says. What it is. Good catch, Sean. Yeah, what was the war book?
Yeah, excellent.
Let me see what the war book calls it. That's it says it's a Cylon tanker, but yeah, that's one of the things that pops up in the war book. Good catch,
That's
Sean.
awesome.
So
so it goes beyond that now.
Yes.
Chapter 2 goes really quickly then into describing the Cylons themselves.
Right, the command center. It talks about how they. It's not the same command center that we see.
Right.
It's
because the one we know is like you said earlier, the Imperious leader.
This is the one we see.
There we go. Yeah, and he's all by himself, giving orders as they present themselves. The Centurions do, and then there's nobody else in that chamber. So somehow, obviously, in that image that we have up, he must be able to communicate on another level, which the chapter itself does explain it. So I guess there's ways of understanding this, but it was always cool when the Cylon Centurions would walk in and present themselves. I cannot let this go, but in that image, there's an actual like gecko. There's a lizard.
Oh yeah, on his shoulder.
It's if you can pull that back up, that little green speck.
It's hot. Yeah, I probably could have brought it if I would have.
It's on there.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, man, I was you see, you could actually I think that's it right there.
Just barely up in the top right hand corner.
Yeah.
On his left shoulder. Yeah.
I never knew that. I never knew that thing was the lizard, and it's actually a lizard, and there's pictures of it.
Yeah.
And I was, I always considered myself a huge, super Battlestar Galactica fan, and I didn't discover that lizard till, I don't know, maybe a few years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, when I actually got to see a picture of it. And as a footnote, Chris, I'm also going to bring this up, that Glenn Larson was not happy with that Imperious leader, that whole costume and what we get to see. Yeah, he didn't like that. That's not really what he wanted, and therefore, from what I understand, we never get any real close-ups of the Imperious leader.
No, we don't.
He just he did not enjoy. He did not like what that Imperious leader looked like. So we didn't really get any close-ups.
We always get the shot from the back as most of the time, back over his shoulder. Towards the Centurions.
Yeah, but the book itself tells us a whole bunch of other stuff.
Oh yeah. So
right, like, you want to get into the communication?
Sure. Yeah. So we talked about the command center, and the command center it's around. We always see him in the show. He's always around the command center, and he's there by himself. In the book, it's a whole different idea, and I think it's better because you think the Battlestar Galactica has the same command center presence as most command centers do on ships. You have a bunch of people feeding a lot of information via terminals or whatever it may be to the commander, where he talks to Colonel Ty, and he talks to everybody else, trying to make the right decisions. It's similar to that in the Cylon command center inside the book, but the Imperious leader sits above the, always see as the Imperious leader. So in the book, it's the Imperious leader on this throne. If they actually describe the throne with really sharp objects on the outside of it, kind of like almost like a barbed wire, but he's surrounded by officers, and he wears a helmet. So I don't know, that hood thing that you see in the show was kind of like a helmet type deal. And what the idea is in the book is everything is interfaced wirelessly to the Imperious leader and to his brains. The Imperious leader, we'll talk a little bit more about brains here in a little bit, but he wears a helmet for an interface, and that transmits back and forth, kind of kind of like a Cylon local area network. So you've
Right.
got input from all of these people going right into him, and he's making decisions in his in a number of his brains, multiple brains. So it talks a little bit about that, and then it switches into who would have thought? But now we get to talk about the Cylons growing up.
Yes.
You want to talk about that? It's wild. I would have never thought. After I rereading this, it was really kind of a shock to me that I really never concentrated much on the chapter. I always, when I was a kid, I'd zip through the book to find out, and just kind of meld what I watched on TV to what was in the book. And some things really didn't click until you go back and reread it. And actually, we've been kind of studying it, which is kind of sad. I mean, we take individual words out of context, fleet or fleets. So the IL had Wi-Fi. That's funny, Sean.
Yeah, that's really kind of what it is,
Yeah,
right?
it's a Wi-Fi thing. So, but
Yeah,
then we move into growing up. It's wild.
right. And so the Cylons themselves, like they advance in a particular way, and then as they are advancing, if they're selected based on their performance for a promotion, they then get what they refer to in the chapter. They actually talk about a first brain versus a second brain. And when I read it, I didn't understand it. And then as we get into the show itself, we saw that there were command Centurions that were gold, right? So I just always assumed later on that the gold Centurion has a second brain, right? And then it's laid out pretty well here in that chapter. How they move through their selection process, and then they talk about how the Cylon, the Imperious leaders, have a time limit to their command structure and their lifespan, so to speak, which I thought was kind of interesting. But like you said, a lot of times when you're reading this, at least the first time, so many years ago, we just kind of like went through it. But so this lays out though the actual way, the career path for an Imperious leader, right? So
Yes,
from the first brain to a second, and
right.
then Chris, it goes to what?
And then you finally get, if you get picked as Imperious leader, you get a third brain.
Yeah,
So yeah, so I was, once again, here we are. The Cylons are not robots. Throughout the books, and the way it should have been in the series, they're not robots. They're reptilian species, very intelligent, and they're so they're actually born. It
right,
says so in the book. They're not built.
right, right,
And I like the idea that so when they're born, they're given, they have this rudimentary type brain that kind of, the fight flight symptoms, the 4Fs, if you want to call them that. But and then as they're kids, they grow older, and then as if they do well and everything else, and then they finally get when they become an adult, they get that brain pulled and a new brain put in, which is just an amazing thought. Anyways, you can replace brains. We're not there
it's
yet.
like, like getting another hard drive. They get a
Yeah,
bigger hard drive.
I think there's some people I work with I'd like to be able to just like pull the new brain and put a new one in, but but yeah, they get this idea. They get so they get the first brain, and that first brain is um in a ceremony that's marking their maturity.
Right.
So they wanted to get that. How did so if they did well in the childhood achievements, then they're picked for warrior. If they don't do well in a childhood achievement, then they're picked to be a civilian and do something like that. But the highest thing you can get in that maturity ceremony is a warrior. And then you flip over to the Imperious leader.
Wow,
So
yeah, that's a
how
whole
do you
other.
get to Imperious leader?
Oh yeah, man. So if they make it past that, the highest level of what is it? They have to be well versed and they have to have a sense of ambition, and if they're selected then based on those traits that they have to excel, then they can get that third brain, and that third brain then gives them the access to become then that's the Imperious leader status. And then with that slide they have up, you can actually see the little green lizard.
There's your green
Then
lizard. Yeah, right up there in the corner.
yeah, there it is. That's it. That's part of the Imperious leaders ode. It's like supposedly the homage to where they came from. Their simple lizard history or background.
Maybe
So
that's one of the
that's
babies.
well, I don't know. It could be. For
You
all we
know,
know,
maybe that's a
yeah,
child.
yeah, it could be. It could be, but it was a way for the Imperious leader to show that they've come this far, right? That this is a
Yep.
simple. I don't know if it was I don't know if it was actually supposed to be a Cylon, or just kind of like this resemblance of like maybe even a mockery of where they kids like we've come so far. Look,
Right.
this is what like that one cell creature, and we are who we are. But look how far we came. Look at this stupid little lizard thing, and look at us now. Like come on. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was, but like somewhere along the line, I found out that he had that lizard with him to always remind, I don't know, himself
hmm
that that's kind of like where they came from. That at one time they were the simple lizards that didn't have much, but look at them now. I guess
Right.
that was the way I interpreted it. So, but the book lays that out. This part of, or at least this section of chapter 2, talks a lot about Cylon race, talks about
Yep.
the brain, right? The third brain implant, the final selection, and command status, and it does talk about that network, that there is a network, amongst them, and they also mention that not all the previous Imperious leaders are dead.
Right. Yeah. So they go into the Imperious leader piece. I really like um the 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 background we get on the Imperious leader. So uh, he was a great, he did great in childhood. So they gave him the job of a warrior, and then as a warrior, he ascended to he became a fighter pilot. Is this starting to sound like familiar? Like we talked about in the first chapter with Adama, who was a fighter
Right,
pilot with Adar.
right.
So so here we are. We're looking starting, and then he becomes such a great pilot. They actually called him Ace of Aces. Uh,
Yes,
so
that was the way
that's a
it is interpreted.
yeah. So if you would have, if the humans could talk, it would interpret to the humans. It would have been called Ace of Aces. So he's a master pilot. He's a tremendous warrior. So he gets that second brain awarded to him, uh, and which makes him a Cylon officer.
Right. Which I
So
assumed, like I told you, I figured that guy, he must be, that's when you wear the gold.
yeah, I know, but I just like Volpa and everything else. I think he would. Yeah, Cylons are robots. Yeah, but yeah, the gold piece. I get it, but what was the IL series then?
Well, they're like a whole other, they were just created to be
Yeah,
something else,
I
right?
don't know. I mean, it just
Yeah.
doesn't seem it doesn't line. One brain, two brain, three brain. It doesn't line that way very well. I mean, I would have thought the IL series seems like they're the ones in charge in regards to officer status.
Yeah.
But once
IL
again,
being
yeah, once again, it's computers.
IL, Imperious leader.
Leader, yeah. So is that like a step below Imperious Leader? Is that the way you're trying to go inside the show? The book? No, it's definitely
No,
different.
no. However, it is in the books later on. They do discuss the IL series, but
Yes,
since we're just on this, right,
we're just
we'll stick
this book
to
first. Yeah,
the intro. But later on, the IL series does come up. They gave it an explanation, and I believe Thurston himself did write one of them. So we'll get there eventually.
yeah.
So we'll
He wrote the
discuss
first
a little
four
more.
books, and then they took a
Yeah,
break from him and then he came back.
yeah. So yeah, so this kind of lays it all out, and it says that he so this particular Imperious leader has done well for himself, and then he does mention the whole idea of their lifespan, right? So they have a lifespan, right, Chris?
Yeah,
There is certain number of years that these guys can live, and they also mention, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that this is where they also talk about their self termination, right?
I think
I
so.
think this is I
I
think
know
this
they
is where they talk about
yeah,
their lifespan,
yeah,
right? The
lifespan
Imperious leader has a lifespan,
75 years, three-quarters of a century.
75 years, and they determine when they've outlived their worth in the
Hmm.
empire, and then they
Right?
can they can then determine when they're going to be, well, it says terminated, but they're really not terminated,
No, they're
right? They
retired.
don't they're retired, but they're not, so they don't cease to exist. Do you want to talk about what happens to them?
Yeah, so this was kind of a neat thing when I read it. And of course, I like to, I'm not a real big fan of the new Battlestar Galactica, but there's some things in the new Battlestar Galactica that you see line up with things inside the book. So inside the book, you see, so these guys last 75 years or so, and then they dictate a successor. But the ones who pass on, they take their brains and digitize them or make them to the point where they can upload the information from that brain into the Imperious Leader third brain. So the Imperious Leader has all of the memories and all of the tactical information and all of the information from all of the other Imperious Leaders uploaded into him. So technically, if you look at it, they can't die because their information is still there. Now, are they coming back in the same body, kind of like with the 2004 version of Battlestar Galactica? No, but they actually have the ability to upload all of the information, so they never cease to exist. So that's kind of cool. Um, that's really cool. So they can compute it. So and then when they finally, the Imperious leader finally gets to the point where he gets that third brain, he starts to think like humans in the third brain. So
So
utilizes that part of the brain. Yeah, go ahead, Pete.
there's one there's one other thing, Chris, that I don't think we mentioned real quick. Telepathy.
Yes.
There is a level of telepathy that the Imperious leader uses to communicate with his minions on the base star. So that's not really. I don't remember that seeing or hearing that at all. In the
Right.
first
I
in the
think if you,
first.
I think if you read that a little better, it's it the when they get their third brain, they're capable of telepathy to the other people with third brain.
Ah,
It
see,
wasn't
that's
it
it.
wasn't it wasn't the Wi-Fi network. It
Oh,
was
it's not. Okay.
on the inside the helmet. It's
Yeah.
without a helmet, and they can actually communicate telepathically with the other the retired Imperious leaders.
Wow. That's a whole other thing, man. Imagine where they could have gone with that.
Oh yeah,
I eh,
I mean,
you
wouldn't it be
know
great
one
to
of
see a big room of Imperious leaders thinking?
Yeah, right? There was there's something really cool in the I think it's the next book that explores the actual third brain and uploading
Oh, with
information.
Volpa, I think that's with
Yeah,
Volpa.
so
Yeah,
that's really
that's number
cool.
two.
But that's later on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, that in and of itself just is a lot of difference between what we see and what goes on. So there's a lot of backstory going on in terms of who the Cylons are, and we get a lot of details on the Imperious leader. I mean, that is just in a couple of pages, and then once we read past that, we're back into the fray, right? This is like they're fighting it out now. This is like
Yeah,
we're back in space.
I just want to jump back right before we get into the battle. The back into the battle is one of the things I noticed in the book. I thought was kind of cool was even though they did the Wi-Fi network and everything else, they still relied on a ceremony. So you see this in the movie. I'll play it here in a second. But um, so a ceremonial order to attack is done by the Centurion, who walks up to the podium and requests permission to attack. And the book has the Imperious leader take his helmet off and communicate rudimentary through vocal, and tells him everything else. So this is what the book. This is what the movie has. So we'll go ahead and play that real quick.
The final annihilation of the life form known as man. Let the attack begin.
One of the best scenes in the whole movie. I'm a Cylon guy, can I say? But
Are you Cylon with the 2 brains or the 3 brains?
I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I just still have the rudimentary brain. I haven't been awarded my warrior brain yet, or my civilian brain yet. I think I get that when I retire.
You may be. Remember, you only get 75 years with it, so
75 years. Oh, I got to be an Imperious leader, and I get 75 years of that. But yeah, so the video on here is, a final annihilation of the life form known as man. What's his name? Patrick
McNee.
McNee. What a wonderful voice he has in this.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He does all this. But the book has a little different, which is kind of cool. The book says the final annihilation of the alien pest, the life form known as man. Let the attack begin. So they view the colonials as alien pests.
Right, of course. I mean, it's an empire. It's the Cylon Empire, and
right.
And the humans have been meddling in the affairs of quote the Cylon Empire.
Right.
And so they went. The 12 colonies supported this other race that had an issue with the Cylons. So there's stuff. And so yeah, they just see everybody, they're humans, like, come on, man, get out of the way.
They're so low. I mean,
yeah, of course.
And the book talks about why the Cylons want to annihilate the humans, and it kind of reminds me of the Borg.
Oh, absolutely.
This was way before the Borg ever existed on TV, but it goes against order. These human pests, they explore, and they're capable of independent thought. There's a key word, independent thought.
That's right.
So, independent action. How dare these people do action independently? So
yep.
The Cylons view these people as pests. I mean, we got to annihilate. It's like a cockroach in a corner. We got to go step on that sucker.
Yeah.
So they, that's kind of cool. We got the backstory of that, and then we finally get back. Get back to the battle, and what's happening with, all of the Cylon ships attacking the fleet, and we'll go from there. You want to cover that, Pete?
Well, yeah, this is the part where there's the fleet's getting the destruction of the fleet, the interaction. It dawns on Adama what's really going on, right? So there's a distraction. The fleet's being attacked, and they're trying to box in and destroy the all the battle stars, because then the colonies are now defenseless, and the Cylons can then do whatever they want. They, of course, to annihilate and destroy. And Adama figures it out, and he also mentions that there's no other Battlestar that's been able to launch either, I think, in part, or no Battlestar has launched all of their Vipers. So there's a chance that some Vipers did launch before some of the Battlestars were finally destroyed, and Adama's gonna leave, and some of some of the bridge crew, and specifically,
like, what?
Are like, you can't leave our fighters, right? So Adama's the only Battlestar that launches all of the Vipers, all the squadrons, and he's gonna leave them and they're like nobody else is caught up to Adama, realizing what's going on. And then when he finally tells Ty, the colonies, they're defenseless. We got to get back and defend them. So they're gonna leave and just the Viper pilots are gonna have to just fend for themselves. They're gonna try to get to the colonies and see what's left, because there's no doubt now that of course the Cylons have attacked the colonies as well, right? So everybody's now absorbing what's really going on, and it's starting to settle in, and you see how dramatic and how deep this is, right? So the Cylons are really evil, man, right? So they're destroying all military capabilities for defense or offense for that matter, and they're just destroying all the 12 colonies. So all of mankind now is like the Imperious leader. That's it. They're going to destroy everything and everybody. And Adama's hightailing it to the colonies, and of course, he's going to try to get to Caprica, and that's kind of like what this part is. And it was like, wow, man,
Oh yeah.
crazy.
The thing I saw in this part was kind of interesting, and there has been some talk about how Adama is portrayed in the book, unlike he is portrayed on the screen. On the screen, he's more of a fatherly figure. In the book, he's feared by some of his people and on the ship. He's a very strong individual. He's aggressive. So you get that. That's a different view that they don't have on the series, but and you get that in this part of it. So this is where the bridge scene is, like you were saying. The Vipers have launched, and he's getting ready to leave, and he's like, set a course for home. In the book, he says, set a course for home, make a run for the home, and Athena's on the bridge, as well as Apollo
Ty.
and
Yes,
Ty.
Apollo's there too. Yeah.
So they're on the bridge, and Athena and Apollo go against him. They're like, what? What? We can't leave them, and we can't do that. And it mentions him like being angry at his children for questioning his authority on the bridge. I mean, here you are on the bridge, and you're giving an order, and your kids, who are here's the CAG, or the person in charge of all the Vipers, Blue Squadron leader, and I don't really remember what Athena kind of was like a flight officer. So they're questioning you. They're saying, "What? We can't do that." Like, whoa. Adama's like, he said, set the course, and then Athena's like, oh, but at least we tell them, and this is one of the things that doesn't show in the movie or in the show is Athena's like, we need to tell the fighters what's going on, and Adama's like, no, we can't tell the fighters what's going on. We can't tell the fighters why we're leaving, because I don't want to lose any possibility of surprise. So here they are. They're abandoning the fighters, and of course, you do see it in the TV show. You see Boomer and Starbuck like, where are they going?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But they did mention something kind of cool. Is like, so he's like, well, how would they catch up with us? He says, oh, they'll find the refueling state. They'll use refueling stations to catch up with us.
Right.
Like, that's something we never heard before. We kind of miss that part in the entire episode. It's like, okay, they leave from home, and then all of a sudden, hey, Starbucks Landing.
Right.
Where, there's a big jump there. Of course, it's for time, of course. But, it talks about that the fighters had to find refueling stations that are hidden along the way to catch up with the Galactica later on.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's something that you just don't get.
Yeah. You just, how do you figure that these guys all, they have like a rendezvous point? I mean, it was pretty interesting. So that leads us then to this other interlude of, like so this we're ready for the next section, right, Chris? This is
Yeah.
So now we're all, we're heading back to the colonies. They're getting, they're gonna see, what's going on, and it's not a pleasant sight, right? So we get to see, that they're a mess, right? They're just things are not the way they're supposed to be, and the we open up now. The next part is with Serena, and
Yes.
Serena is, so we cut a, it's like a jump cut. We go to Serena in the movie, but in the book also. So Serena now, she's a reporter, and
Yep.
she's at um this place where it's all set up for the peace talks, right? They've decorated it, they all kind of
Hmm.
set it all up, and she's covering it, and all of a sudden it's not, things go sideways, and they go
Right.
real quick to pick up on what's going on. And what's going on is there's an attack,
Yes.
and they're like, "Oh man, what the heck," right? And it's like things are blowing up all over the place, and we see that in in the movie itself. We see that in the book. The book actually it describes things with a hell of a lot more detail,
Yes.
and
Much better.
we also get to meet Muffet,
Yes.
right? They talk
Muffet the
about,
Boxy. Yeah.
right, yeah, and Boxy. So they talk about the Daggett, which is mentioned later on in in the uh in the movie, right? They allude to the fact that there was I believe you do get to see it. I think it's I don't know if it's in the outtakes or not,
I've got
but
the
there is a
outtakes here.
part where you get to see the dog.
Yeah. Hang
There
on.
is a dog that
Let me.
kind of like runs across or something.
Yep. Let me pull up the outtake here. So this is the
All right,
outtake
cool.
from the original movie with Serena, and like Pete was just setting the scene. It's Caprica. Everything is fine on the video screens, um, but now everybody on the Galactica Bridge gets to watch the destruction of their homeworld and the death and destruction via video, which is horrible to begin with. But so she gets described as she says she's like it mentions she's one of the most beautiful people, and people want to be just like her, and she's tired of seeing herself on the billboards and being so she kind of gets into that backstory. But here's the outtake of the video, so we'll play that.
Oh yeah, cool.
Something that has been described as the most significant event in history.
Something's happened. I don't know what. It seems like an explosion. People are staring in this direction. I think we ought to check this one out. Here.
Come on, Noah.
Peanuts! 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 Hey, peanuts. Yeah, peanuts. Yeah. Come on. Peanuts! Come on. Come on. Roxy? Roxy? Roxy! Roxy, loud!
Be patient, just be glad.
So great acting. I love she can scream really well.
Oh heck, yeah.
Foxy.
Which is kind of cool because it links the two characters in the movie, but
Right.
in the book they're strangers,
Yeah.
right? They're not known to each other. It just, it seems like she's doing her thing, and all of a sudden it's, in the book itself it talks about a child, and so they get attacked, and she kind of like saves him, and it didn't seem to me, reading it was kind of hard to put one and one together in terms of their relationship book wise. So it to me it seemed more like, she's reporting, there's a lot of people around, and this kid is there, and she kind of like saves the kid from death. um and it's not because she's related to him. She's not his mom. It's not his mom. So that I thought was really interesting. And so they played it, obviously they played it differently in the show or the movie.
Yes, I wonder. I mean, I wonder why they changed it that way. I mean, in the show they make it where Serena is the mom, but in the book it's not.
Yeah,
So I wonder why they
he's just
decided to change it. Did
yeah,
it create
you
more of
kind of
a, I don't know, a heart wrenching uh, physical or a connection of some type to the characters? Did they want that
yeah.
connection to the characters? Whereas, Boxy being an orphan at this point, would that look bad to people out in, people on TV at this 1977, 78? Uh, it's kind of an
There,
interesting, why did they change it?
I know that I listened to Richard Hatch's interview that he gave. It's an extensive audio interview, and it was one of his last that he put together, sort of like a autobiography. And he talked about how he made it a point to keep Noah Hathaway on the show
Yes,
because he felt that it was important to have this father son thing going on,
right.
right? So
Yeah, he petitioned
maybe,
to have him stay and become
yeah,
his father type deal.
yeah. So I guess that kind of makes it a simpler, bridges the whole idea, instead of like, I guess Serena kind of like adopts this strange Boxy, and he takes to her, and now then Apollo comes into the picture, and so he's just like this orphan all around, right? He has no real
Right.
relations to Serena, and now Apollo becomes his father figure. I don't
Yeah.
know. It seems a
Maybe it
little,
was because he's, Apollo. Richard Hatch always wanted more depth to the character. He always thought the
yeah,
character wasn't challenged or deep enough. So I think you're right. I think they probably changed that over so they could have it to where he stayed on later on.
yeah.
We won't talk
Which
about what's supposed to happen to Serena yet. That's in the next couple
No, no, no. Yeah, yeah. So right now, so this as far as we got, right? So we have one more jump cut,
Yep.
right? So the story now, right? So the attack goes on, right? So we do you showed some really good outtakes that never made it into the movie itself, and it establishes Boxy, Serena, the dog, right?
Hmm.
And the attack is going on, and they're nearly all killed. And there's the Cylon Raider comes in and just starts blowing stuff up. And the book, of course, they're pinned down under a whole bunch of like rubble and stuff like that.
Right.
And then so that takes us, then the jump cut is we're back onto the Battlestar. We're on
Yes.
we're on the Galactica, right?
Yep.
And Athena, she's looking at her father, and they're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And I think this is then the beginnings of uh, the realization, holy mackerel, the colonies are being destroyed. So they're being like
Right.
bombed, and they're being attacked, and they're just being destroyed. Everybody's being wiped out. So they got to figure out what is it that they're going to do now. And then this, so like that's kind of like where this last part to chapter 2 comes into play. It's like, okay, so now they're finally getting to Caprica, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, what about mom? Right?
Yeah.
So up until now, it's like, wait a second, Commander Adama's wife, right? Athena, Apollo,
Yep.
Zach's mom is back on Caprica. And so that plays into the story at this point.
Yes. At this point, and then we get more into that in the next chapter when he goes down to the surface. So,
Right.
but
But this is where they intro that concept, that idea
yep.
of they're going to Caprica City, right? The
Hmm.
destruction. And it's like, so this is kind of like the setup for that. And then, Zach is brought up. They mentioned Zach, and, they're picking up the Cylons. All right. So there's definitely Cylon fighters coming in. We've seen that already, obviously, since they attacked the whole, that stadium or whatever that they set up for the peace celebrations. And this is it's pretty serious. So it's the chapter's gonna kind of end on a grim note.
Yes. It's destruction. That's all there is to it. It's
Oh yeah, and they're
yeah.
talking about no return, right?
Yep.
That's mentioned. Not return. Ty says you'll return, Commander. Ty extended his hand to so they're this idea that they're going to they've decided at the end of this chapter, this is where they decide they're going to actually Commander Adama acquiesces to fly down with his son, right?
Yep. Exactly.
And because that wasn't going to happen. Like Adama was like, I'm going to go down the shuttle real quick, and everybody's bent out of shape about it. And then that's when they decide that Apollo's going to fly him down.
Yeah,
And
which
they're
is
gonna
always
actually go to-
it's always been the curious part. How does he fit in the Viper?
Yes, exactly. So there's like a jump seat. There's like
Yeah.
a little tiny seat in the back of the Viper.
Like the old trucks,
Yeah. Maybe
it's
maybe it's
inside the engine cowling. They just take one out.
Maybe it's a particular model of Viper. Maybe not all the Vipers are outfitted that way. I mean, who knows? It was never
Yeah.
explained. But he flew down with Apollo, right?
Right.
And there is no shuttle. We never see a shuttle, and it doesn't say
No.
anything about a shuttle in the book.
No,
So
he says in the book and as well as in the movie, he says, "I'll fly. I insist I take you down in my Viper."
right. So that's kind of it. And he says goodbye to Ty, and instead of
Yeah.
Ty's like, "You're coming
no.
back."
Yeah, you're
Like,
coming.
he's-
It's almost like a tearful goodbye, like I'm not coming back. And Ty's like, "Oh no,
Yeah, he's like, "No,
you're not
coming
leaving.
back."
You're not leaving me with this crap. You're not
But
putting this on me, man. You're
but
gonna
they're
make it
also-
back."
the idea that Commander Adama, for all intents and purposes, there are no other commanders, right? There's
No.
no more. This is
And
it. He's the only
Council of
commander
12.
left.
Yep.
Yeah,
The last
And it's like-
remaining. Yep.
Battlestar, right? Operational Battlestar, full complement of Vipers and everything else. And now, so he's going, and yeah, you're coming back. So that's basically how the episode ends. I mean,
The chapter ends.
the chapter itself, right? The chapter ends on
Yep.
that note, which is in line with what they showed us in the movie itself. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty close,
that's-
very close.
Yeah. So chapter 2, although is short in writing, it has a lot to it.
A lot of depth.
Oh yeah. So that's chapter 2. Not that much else, I think, goes into the story or the differences. They kind of pretty much match up, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, so
I mean, other
that-
than the, we got to see the differences in the Cylons. We get a little more description on the brains. We get to see a little bit of interaction between, Adama and his kids, and how Adama is not the father figure that you kind of see on the show. And summarizing up, we've got, how do you become an Imperious leader? So we really get a really good look. I think this chapter helped me understand the Cylons more than anything else. The number of brains and that kind of information was really helpful. Going through this again for the first time in forever, but studying it in depth. I have, if we're done with the summary here, I've got a kind of a little cool thing. So you could see the Caprica thing. I did a little bit of hunting on and kind of found some scene locations and some trivia for Caprica. So let me show that real quick. It's kind of cool. So,
if what's this COVID, once we put the COVID to rest, I'm going to actually visit some of these places. I've actually driven by some of them.
Mhm.
I've been to a couple in Southern California and LA, but I'm definitely going to come back with some really good picks for you, Chris,
Cool.
next time I get out there.
yeah, this is
That's
all
gonna-
Long Beach, California. City Hall and the library complex is where Caprica technically is. So
Right.
this is the this picture, you see the the view of what it looks like on the movie, and then compared to what the scene looks like today.
Yep.
Also, the funny thing was if you watch it in standard definition, you can't tell. But in high definition, if you look close enough, each one of those squares on the ground is a 4x8 sheet of plywood.
Oh, really?
It's not anything special. It's not specializing. They're just sheets of plywood laid down so they could put they could run the wires for the explosives. And then also what I was told is they didn't know where the Cylons were coming in from, so they shot this scene, and then after they shot the scene, the Dykstra and crew had to go in and figure out how to get the Viper or the Raiders to fly in and shoot at these certain areas where the explosions were.
Interesting. Wow, that's good detail, man.
That's
Oh, yeah.
cool. This may look familiar. So this is you said this is Centennial Park. So for California, Long Beach, California, and then
Long
you get
Beach,
to
yeah.
see. If you look real close in the picture on the right hand side, you can see the 4x8 sheets of plywood, the wood grain on them.
Yeah, you can. There they are. That's right. Oh, wow. That's something.
And
Oh,
then,
man.
and this is the last one I've got is just the large
Yeah.
building that they do a shot up at, and the Viper and the Viper, I keep saying Viper. The Raider comes
The
around and
Cylon
shoots
Raider,
around the
yeah.
building.
Yep.
That was kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I
yeah.
figured everybody would like to see that.
Oh, that's really cool. Well done.
So
Well,
we had
I
some
guess,
great comments today. So Sean seems to be our big one, and John is online, and we have George is online too. So thanks for everybody going there. I liked a couple of. I just want to bring up a couple of the things. So Sean was like, telepathy with the telepathy theme. Sean says, just like the Count had telepathy too. So, well, yeah, was the Count, so we get to see like when Baltar, the episode Baltar returns, and you get Count Ebly,
Yep.
in there, and he communicates telepathically and has all these powers. I wonder if that's because he maybe was the third brain thing,
Well, I don't
Kind of
know.
interesting.
I gotta tell you, hey, Commander Adama, right? He actually was involved in some studies by the Military Institute, and they actually were
Right.
experimenting with, right? And he's able to move, right? Adama is able to actually move a piece on his desk.
I wonder if that's in what book is that one?
So, yeah, so who knows? Maybe this is something that is a part of, the their culture,
Right.
because obviously, he does have some power, and they did talk about it, and he was able to move something. So he kind of like, remember,
He moves that
everybody
eagle statue.
Yeah, everybody feared Ibli, and so that was kind of interesting. How he tried to put it in a perspective, so to speak. But yeah, hey, we are we're moving through the book itself, but I think it's important to let everybody know that we have a bunch of other things lined up, right, Chris? We have
Oh, yeah.
other themes, and we foresee ourselves. Once the book is over, this is not the end of what we're going to be doing in terms of IFB, right? So
Right.
we have some ideas lined up, and we're going to have possibly some authors coming on, and we're going to cover some some books and things that are trending, and more Galactica, right? Fanzines, and we're trying to hunt down some authors, fan films, and
We're
all
almost
kinds of
stalking
stuff.
them at this point.
Well,
You know how
we're
hard it
putting
is to
out the
find these
word.
people.
It seems impossible, but it can't be impossible, right? I mean,
No.
it's being difficult, but we're fans that crossed over to fanzines, right? So we enjoyed reading beyond what was available, and we were big supporters of the independent authorship and imagination that existed and exists. I mean, it's still out there,
Oh, yeah.
but
There's
in
still, yeah.
terms of keeping this thing alive, and revisiting, right? We're not the only ones that have reached out to these
Yeah.
guys before,
I like saying
right?
revisiting. I don't want to say reimagined. That's a bad.
Correct. So we're revisiting these topics, and we want to make sure that everybody realizes that they're not forgotten, right? These are not, none of this is a throwaway, not the show, not the stories, not the fanzines, the writers, the fans, none of this, right? And this is the way I always, looked into it as a way to give back to fandom, right?
Yep.
It's never been enough for me, Chris, to just collect all this stuff for just me.
Oh no,
And
yeah.
now,
I want to
right?
talk to everybody. It's what we say earlier. It was the hashtag fans fuel the fleet.
That's right.
So fans
Fans fuel
fuel the
fleet.
fleet. Without
And
the
that,
fans, the fleet doesn't
yeah,
move.
that's right. So that's definitely something that, we're going to incorporate in, what IFB is. It's the fans fueling the fleet. That's going to be part of our motto officially. And, we're doing this because we're big sci-fi fans and we're big Galactica fans. So we're going to keep exploring. We're going to keep digging and, reading we're going to go into the magazines, the props. Chris, you got a whole bunch of props.
Oh yeah.
Unfortunately, there's no conventions, but we always wanted to do conventions. That was going to be,
Oh no,
a
there's one
focal
convention.
point
There's a convention coming up that we will be at.
Oh, well, tell us real quick. You can mention it,
So
man. Come on.
there's IFB will be at the Roanoke Civic Center for what they call Big Lick Comic Con. It's one of the few Comic
Who's
Cons in the area, and well, let's see I keep saying Sam
some
Jones
Sam Jones,
will be
Flash
there from
Gordon, man.
Flash Gordon, and
Yeah.
as well as Noah Hathaway
Oh,
will be there. So we're going to try to get a sit down with them and talk to them, and we're going to try to talk to a bunch of the fans and get some. We like talking to the fans and looking at the costumes. We'll interview some of the contestants, probably some winners from the contestants, and have them talk about their stuff. We'll throw it up here on either our YouTube channel, which reminds me, don't forget, subscribe on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel, Interfleet Broadcasting is on YouTube, so you can go there and hit the subscribe button. And if you want to get notified, you have to hit the little bell thing if you want to get notified. So, but we plan to go there. It's probably one of the very few Comic Cons that are in the area. We figured we better jump on it and actually finally get to a Comic Con after all of this COVID stuff.
well, we do have a story, but we'll leave that for a future episode. We'll talk about, a little bit of what it was like to try to help put together a convention that was
Oh, yeah.
only lasted a half a day, and you went to. So
It was a
that
mess.
in and of itself is a story. So
Yeah.
we definitely should explore that as well. So yeah, we have other things that we're going to talk about, other deep dives that we're going to take into the lore of Galactica, and then follow up with some other shows for Glenn Larson shows, and bring on some guests. We're planning on putting up some guests and interviewing them as well.
Yep. We reached out to a number of people, and like I said, we're trying to track down a number of people too. And there's it's difficult to get a hold of people after they kind of fall off the edge of the earth. So some of the authors of the fanzines have fallen off the edge of the earth. You have to go hunt them down, and we are
Yeah, we'd
actively
like
hunting.
Yes, we definitely would like to let them know that, although, they may have, moved on to writing other things, or they may be involved into other, I don't know. I don't want to say they've completely forgotten about where they came from and the work that they had done.
Right.
It's important. It has meaning, and it's
Very.
still alive. It still means something, and we'd like to hear from them. And there's plenty of writers that we've been we've started identifying some of the key ones, and we're gonna try to follow up. We'll try to get them with us on IFB. So I don't know. With that, I guess, Chris, we're pretty much a wrap.
Pretty much a wrap.
Another,
So join us again. We'll put the announcement out for the next one, probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We'll have another out. We'll come out with number 3, and we'll have more news. We'll have more information on regards to the book versus video, and maybe we'll have an interview. We're working on the final pieces of that one, so we can have a
exactly. Yep.
special interview with that one too. So we'll put it out in the announcements. But we really do appreciate you watching, whether you're watching it live, like Sean and John and George. George is one of our staff members. That's always nice to have a staff member in the background.
John.
And John, another staff member. So we just welcome him to the show. Things are gonna keep moving, and we've got lots of good ideas that's gonna happen. So thanks for joining us, whether you joined live or we're joining during the recording. We'll make this recording available later on, and we'll chop it up a little bit so we can get little pieces out, because some people just don't want to sit down and watch an hour and a few minutes. They don't have that time. So we'll chop up some of the information and make it more digestible in pieces. But once again, my name is Chris Moore. Thanks for joining. And Pete?
And yep, PG Kum is signing off. Take care, everyone, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks a lot, guys and gals. I keep saying guys. I don't know why. All right, y'all take care.